Imagine standing on the edge of a rooftop, cigarette in hand, ready to give up on life, because you're broke, lonely, and broken. That was Ryan Blake, a man who thought he had nothing left to live for. But in that one final moment, instead of jumping, he pressed record on his phone. What happened next changed everything. His story of pain turned into a message of hope, and in just 1 year, he went from almost ending his life to inspiring millions, marrying the woman of his dreams, and buying his first home. This is not just a story about success. It's a story about survival, gratitude, and the power of one decision. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear might just shift your life too. Ryan Blake sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, staring at the cracked paint on the ceiling. His phone, an old iPhone 12 with scratches across the back, buzzed once, then fell silent. It was just another notification he didn't care to read. At 35 years old, Ryan felt as if his life had already ended. Even though his body kept moving through each miserable day, he had no savings, no girlfriend, and not even a close friend to share a laugh with. His left leg still ached from a bus accident he'd been in the year before, and he walked with a subtle limp that made him feel older than his age. The accident had been a cruel reminder of how fragile life could be. He remembered that day vividly, the bus swerving suddenly, passengers screaming, his body thrown sideways, and the sharp, crushing pain in his leg. Since then, nothing had been the same. His small jobs dried up, opportunities slipped away, and slowly, friends did too. People drift when you have no money to buy them coffee, no car to drive them places, no energy to laugh at their jokes. Now, Ryan sat surrounded by silence, except for the faint hum of the fridge. Loneliness had become his shadow, following him everywhere. Sometimes he'd whisper to himself just to hear a voice. Sometimes he'd scroll through social media, watching other people's happy lives, marriages, vacations, new houses, smiling children, and feel a heavy stone pressed down on his chest. One afternoon, the weight became unbearable. He stood by the window, staring out at the city. The world outside seemed alive, buzzing with people who had purpose while he felt invisible. He muttered under his breath, "What am I even doing here? I have nothing. I am nothing." The thought wasn't new. It had visited him countless times before, but this time, it wouldn't leave. He grabbed his phone, stuffed it in his pocket, and walked out the door. His limp slowed him down, but his pace was steady. He knew exactly where he was going, the tallest building nearby. The climb up the stairwell felt endless. His heart pounded harder with every floor, but he wasn't nervous. He was strangely calm, as if his decision had already been signed, sealed, and delivered. When he finally pushed the rooftop door open, a wave of hot afternoon air hit him in the face. The city stretched out below him, cars honking, people crossing streets, the normal chaos of life. He felt disconnected from all of it, like he was already gone. From his pocket, he pulled out a crushed cigarette. His last one. He lit it, inhaled deeply, and exhaled toward the sky. The smoke curled upward and disappeared into the bright blue. "This is it," he whispered. "One last smoke, then it's over." As he held the cigarette, Ryan unlocked his phone out of habit. His thumb slid across the screen, opening YouTube. He scrolled aimlessly, not even knowing why, maybe just to waste a minute before the end. And then, as if by fate, a random video appeared. The man on screen said in a calm but firm voice, "If you have no money, you can still earn. Just talk to people online who are lonely. Millions are waiting for someone who simply listens." Ryan froze. He replayed the line in his head. Talk to people online, earn by listening. It sounded too simple, almost ridiculous. But in that moment, it felt like someone had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart. His cigarette burned low between his fingers as he whispered, What if I don't end it today? What if I try one more thing?" For the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. He felt possibility. He crushed the cigarette under his shoe, took one last look at the edge of the rooftop, and turned around. Back in his small apartment, Ryan sat on the edge of his bed, phone propped up against an old mug. He stared into the camera. His reflection showed a tired man with unshaven stubble, messy hair, and eyes that had cried too many times. He hit record. Words spilled out of him. He talked about how he had been ready to commit suicide that day, about how loneliness and money struggles had crushed him, about the accident that left him limping, both physically and emotionally. He didn't plan his speech. He just let the pain pour out. For 15 minutes, Ryan spoke raw truth. Then he hit upload. The title read, "I was about to end my life, but I changed my mind." He didn't expect anything. Maybe a few views, maybe none. He set the phone down and lay back on the bed, exhausted. But within hours, his notifications buzzed like never before. Comments flooded in. Messages from strangers saying, "Man, your honesty saved me today. Please don't give up. We need voices like yours." Ryan sat up, staring at the screen, tears rolling down his face. For so long, he thought nobody cared if he lived or died. But here were strangers, real people, telling him his voice mattered. That night, for the first time in a long time, Ryan didn't cry himself to sleep. He closed his eyes with a spark of something new in his chest, hope. The next day, he uploaded another video. This time he spoke about overthinking, how his mind always raced with doubts and fears. He told viewers, "Do you think too much? Don't worry. This is not astonishing. Ears are made to hear, eyes are made to see, and the mind is made to think. That's its job. The secret is to put that energy into meaningful work. Then overthinking will never crush you again." The comments grew. People begged for more. They asked him to go live, to talk to them directly. Ryan was nervous, but he tried it. He went live on YouTube, phone shaking in his hand, voice cracking at first. But as viewers joined, he realized something: people weren't there to judge. They were there to be heard. And Ryan listened. He listened like no one had ever listened to him. That night, dozens of people messaged him saying his live stream helped them feel less alone. Ryan put his phone down and whispered to himself, maybe I do have something to give." For the first time, he smiled. Ryan Blake woke up the next morning and, out of habit, reached for his phone. The iPhone 12 screen lit up with a flood of notifications, hundreds of comments, thousands of views. His 15-minute, unedited, shaky video had reached more people than he ever dreamed possible. He sat upright in bed, heart racing. He scrolled through the messages. "Oh bro, I was about to do the same thing. Your video stopped me. Keep posting. We need voices like you. Man, this is real. Don't stop." For months, Ryan had believed he was invisible. Yet here were strangers. People who had never met him, not only listening but begging him to speak more. For the first time, his pain had turned into connection. That day, Ryan recorded again. He didn't try to be polished. He didn't script anything. He just sat in his room, placed the phone against the same chipped mug, and talked. This time, he spoke about overthinking. "Do you think too much?" he asked the camera, his voice steady but soft. "Don't worry. This is not astonishing. Ears are made to hear, eyes are made to see, and the mind is made to think. That's its job. The secret is to put that energy into meaningful work. Then overthinking will never crush you again." The words surprised even him. He hadn't written them down. They just came from his own battles. But when he uploaded the video, it exploded. By evening, people were quoting his line in the comments. Viewers began to call it the Ryan rule for overthinking. Memes and short clips spread across TikTok, Instagram, and even Facebook groups. Ryan sat in his dark room, scrolling through the flood of reactions, shaking his head in disbelief. He whispered, "All this, from just being honest." 3 days later, Ryan clicked the "Go Live" button for the first time. His palms were sweaty. He didn't know if anyone would even show up. But within minutes, the number on the corner of his screen climbed. 250 letter U $100 faces and names filled the chat box. "Hey Ryan, I saw your first video. Man, I'm struggling with anxiety. Can you talk about it? Bro, you saved my cousin last night. Please keep doing this." Ryan froze. Dozens of people were waiting, not for perfection, but for him. He leaned forward, swallowed hard, and said, "Listen, I don't have all the answers, but I know what it feels like to be broken. If you're hurting, you're not alone." The chat lit up. People poured their hearts out. Ryan scribbled notes in an old notebook as viewers shared struggles: failing jobs, broken relationships, depression, fear of the future. He answered with what he knew. sometimes pausing to search and refine responses with ChatGPT, then putting them into his own words. People loved it. They didn't care that he wasn't a doctor or a professional speaker. They cared that he was real. That night, when he ended the stream, his phone buzzed nonstop with private messages. "Thank you. I needed that tonight." Ryan closed his eyes and whispered to the quiet room, "Maybe this is why I didn't jump." Weeks passed. Ryan uploaded 3, sometimes 4 videos a week. They weren't polished. He still filmed in his messy bedroom. The lighting was bad. His voice cracked sometimes. But the rawness was the charm. He was consistent, and that consistency built trust. By the 3rd month, his channel crossed 50,000 subscribers. By the 4th month, it doubled. Ryan's overthinking line became his signature. Viewers began tagging him on other platforms, quoting, "Ears hear, eyes see, the mind thinks. That's its job. Put it to work." It wasn't just a line anymore. It became a mantra. But success didn't erase his struggles. Some nights, Ryan stared at the ceiling, thinking, what if this ends tomorrow? What if people stop watching? What if I'm just a fraud? The old anxiety clawed at him. But then he'd open his inbox and see hundreds of messages from strangers thanking him for helping them fight through their darkest nights. Each thank you became fuel. At the 6-month mark, YouTube monetization kicked in. Ryan looked at his first earnings report for 412. It wasn't much, but to him, it felt like a miracle. He hadn't earned money in months. Now he was earning by simply telling the truth, by listening, by helping. By the 7th month, his monthly income grew into the thousands. He started a Patreon where loyal followers donated to keep his work going. Some sent small amounts, $5 or $10, others gave more. Ryan cried when he realized strangers believed in him enough to support him financially. He upgraded his setup slightly. A second-hand microphone, a ring light from Amazon, and a simple backdrop. But he never lost the rawness. He didn't want to look like a polished influencer. He wanted to stay Ryan Blake, the man who almost gave up, but didn't. By month 8, something happened Ryan never expected. Journalists began reaching out. A local podcast invited him to share his story. Soon after, an online magazine published an article titled, "From Suicide to Success: How Ryan Blake Became a Voice of Hope." The article spread, and Ryan's subscribers jumped again. Universities emailed him to speak virtually about mental health and resilience. Students quoted his overthinking mantra in classrooms. Teachers thanked him for connecting with young people in ways textbooks couldn't. Ryan couldn't believe it. Just months earlier, he was invisible. Now people looked up to him. But the most powerful moment came one night in his live stream. A young man typed into the chatsi, "Ryan, I had a gun in my hand last week. I watched your video, and I put it down. Thank you for saving my life." Ryan stared at the words on screen. His throat tightened. Tears blurred his vision. He whispered into the microphone, "No, my friend. You saved your own life. You made the choice. I just reminded you that your life still has meaning." The chat exploded with messages of love and encouragement for the young man. That night, Ryan realized his channel wasn't just entertainment. It was survival for some people. And in helping them survive, Ryan was finally learning how to live. By month 9, Ryan no longer hid his limp. At first, he had angled the camera to avoid showing himself walking. But now, he addressed it openly. "Yes, my left leg still hurts. Yes, I walk slower than most. But that's life. Pain doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It just means you move differently." People respected him more for his honesty. His imperfection became his strength. As his community grew into hundreds of thousands, Ryan felt something he hadn't felt in years: belonging. He wasn't just Ryan Blake, the man who almost jumped. He was Ryan Blake, the man who chose to live, and helped others do the same. In his 12th month, Ryan uploaded a video titled, "1 year ago I was about to end it all. This is what changed." He told his story from the rooftop cigarette to that very day, showing clips of his old videos compared to now. The raw, broken man who whispered into a shaky phone camera had become a confident, purposeful storyteller with hundreds of thousands of people listening. The video went viral worldwide. News outlets shared it. Motivational pages reposted clips. Ryan's subscriber count soared past 500,000. He was no longer surviving. He was thriving, but his journey wasn't over. Prosperity was about to take a new form: love and stability. The day Ryan Blake uploaded his "1 year ago I almost ended it all" video, his life reached a turning point he could never have imagined. Overnight, his channel surged with new subscribers. Within a week, he was invited to speak on 2 national podcasts. His inbox overflowed with messages from people who said his story gave them strength. But in the middle of all this digital noise, something more human, more personal, quietly entered his life. One evening, while checking his messages, Ryan noticed a comment that felt different. It wasn't long or dramatic, just a simple note: "Thank you for sharing your story. It reminded me that even broken people can still shine." Emily. Something about the way she phrased it caught his attention. He clicked on her profile and found she was a 32-year-old teacher living in a nearby city. She often posted about books, mindfulness, and her students. Ryan didn't usually respond to every message. There were too many. But this time, he did. "Hi Emily, thank you for your kind words. I'm glad my story resonated with you." "Broken doesn't mean finished, right?" she replied within minutes. "Exactly. My students struggle with anxiety too. I actually played one of your clips in class. It really connected with them." That single exchange turned into a longer conversation. They talked about books, teaching, healing, and the importance of gratitude. For weeks, they messaged back and forth, slowly building a friendship that felt surprisingly natural. Ryan couldn't believe how comfortable it felt to talk to someone again. 3 months later, they agreed to meet in person. Ryan was nervous. His limp made him self-conscious, and part of him feared she would see him differently in real life. But when Emily arrived at the small cafe, she smiled warmly and said, "Ryan Blake, the man who turned pain into purpose. It's nice to finally meet you." Her words melted his fear. They spent hours talking. No awkward pauses, no judgment. Just 2 people who understood the weight of life, but chose to carry it with hope. As they said goodbye that evening, Ryan thought, maybe life really does give second chances. Their connection deepened. Emily attended one of Ryan's live talks, sitting quietly in the back of the room while he spoke about overthinking and resilience. Afterward, she hugged him and whispered, "You're helping people more than you realize." Ryan felt something stir inside him. Not just gratitude, but love. For the first time in years, he imagined a future that wasn't just about survival, but about partnership. By the end of the year, Ryan asked her to marry him. Not with grand gestures or luxury, but with honesty. He held her hands, eyes wet with emotion, and said, "A year ago, I wanted to end my story. Today I want to start a new one, with you." Emily smiled through tears and said yes. Marriage wasn't the only milestone. With his channel income, Patreon support, and speaking opportunities, Ryan had saved more money in 1 year than he thought possible. He met with a realtor and signed papers for a modest but beautiful house in a good neighborhood. When he held the keys in his hand, Ryan couldn't stop staring. A man who once couldn't afford coffee for a friend now owned a home. He walked into the empty living room, ran his hand along the freshly painted wall, and whispered, "We did it, Ryan. You didn't give up." Emily moved in shortly after their wedding. Together, they filled the house with laughter, books, plants, and late-night conversations. Ryan's limp still reminded him of his accident, but instead of shame, it became a symbol. Every step he took inside his new home was proof that broken paths can still lead somewhere beautiful. One evening, sitting on the porch with Emily beside him, Ryan reflected aloud, "You know, I used to think life without money meant life without meaning. But now I realize, meaning creates money, not the other way around. Once I found purpose, prosperity followed." Emily squeezed his hand and said, "And once you found gratitude, you found love too." Ryan smiled. She was right. Gratitude had been the missing piece. He carried it into everything: his work, his marriage, his home. Every live stream began with him saying, "Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Gratitude is the root of growth." Ryan's message about overthinking became legendary. In interviews, people asked him to repeat his famous line. He never grew tired of it. "Do you think too much? Don't worry. This is not astonishing. Ears are made to hear, eyes are made to see. and the mind is made to think. That's its job. The secret is to put that energy into meaningful work. Then overthinking will never crush you again. Those words, once whispered in a small room, were now quoted on posters, in classrooms, and across social media worldwide. Ryan never saw himself as a guru. He always reminded his audience, "I'm not above you. I'm one of you. I just chose to keep going." Exactly 1 year after that rooftop cigarette, Ryan stood outside his new home with Emily. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. He remembered standing on the edge, ready to throw it all away. Now, he stood on a different edge, the edge of a future full of love, stability, and purpose. He wrapped his arm around Emily and whispered, "I almost missed this. I almost never saw this sunset. But I'm here, because I chose to live." But tears filled his eyes, but this time they were not from pain. They were from gratitude. Ryan Blake's story isn't just about going viral, or even about success. It's about proving that one decision can shift everything, from loneliness to love, from poverty to prosperity. Oh, from a rooftop cigarette to a wedding ring and a house key. He showed the world, and himself, that even when life feels impossible, there's always one more chapter waiting to be written. All it takes is courage. All it takes is gratitude. And all it takes is one decision. So, what's stopping you? Ryan Blake almost threw his life away because he thought he had nothing. But the truth is, he had one thing left, a choice. And that choice changed everything. But let me ask you, how many times have you said, "I'll start tomorrow"? How many dreams have you buried because of fear, doubt, or excuses? And be honest, if your life ended tonight, would you be proud of the story you've written so far? Ryan proved you don't need money, connections, or perfection to change. You only need courage, consistency, and gratitude. So the real question is, what's your excuse now? And when will you make your one decision?